Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Bark Night Podcast. I am your host, Patrick.
And I'm Dan.
Great to be with you again this week. We are going to be talking for pretty much the entire episode today about the movie Sinners that released over the weekend. And that's going to be the complete focus for us. So we're going to start off with basically some facts about the movies, reviews, box office, budget, all that good stuff. And then we're going to do some quick spoiler-free reviews between me and Dan. Then we're going to jump in, no holds barred, full spoiler about everything about this movie.
Got the both feet.
Right. And we're going to talk all the different genre inspirations that are in this. We're going to dive into each one of the characters, the directing, the cinematography, the lore that they establish in the movie, the music and the different musical inspirations, some specific scenes, the ending.
Right. The real ending.
Right. And then sort of our final thoughts about the whole thing.
Sounds good, my friend.
All right. So let's get right into it, talking about Sinners now. So I'll let Dan introduce the movie.
Right. So Sinners, obviously, new 2025 movie from Ryan Coogler, who directed, of course, Creed, Black Panther, things of that nature. This is his first original idea, his first movie he considers his own. Came out as getting great reviews. It currently has a 98 from Rotten Tomatoes for critics, 97 from fans, and 8.2 on IMDb. It also was the first horror movie in 35 years to get an A from CinemaScore, which is a marketing research company that asks moviegoers around the country to survey a movie on the opening night in theater and rank it from A to F. And Sinners was the first horror movie to get an A in that in 35 years. A couple other ones like Get Out got an A minus. The original Conjuring got like an A minus. So, but an A itself, this is the first one to get one of those in quite a while.
Yeah, that's huge.
That is huge. Metacritic is sitting at 84 out of 100. The Guardian gave it 60 out of 100. And it's blowing up all over Threads and TikTok, and it's really making a cultural impact. It's one of those. It's a buzz movie right now.
Yeah, it's so the Guardian had some serious thoughts about this movie, and their scoring of it really skewed those results. Or else
it did, yeah,
a lot closer to 100. When it comes to Threads, I'm seeing a ton of people talking about going to see this multiple times because they basically A, can't get it out of their heads, and B, notice and appreciate certain things within it a lot more after multiple viewings.
Right.
I'm actually doing an interview with the host of the Cinematic Nightmares podcast later this week, and she has actually gone and seen this 4 times already.
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
Impressive.
I actually went twice over the weekend to see it. So last night I had been talking about how I wish I had gone and seen it in IMAX, and I kept talking about it, and then finally Sarah was like, "You know what? I could watch that again. Do you want to go tonight?" And I was like, "All right, yeah, let's go." So we went. We saw it in IMAX. So we've even seen it twice now. When it was over, she was like, "All right, I'm not doing that again. Like 2 is my limit." But like, I'm surprised she did it twice. You know,
that's awesome.
She doesn't watch movies twice,
right?
Like ever. Like she'll watch it once now, and then she won't want to watch it again for like 5 years.
Right, and that shows something about how well done the movie is.
Right.
And the movie is based in the South. Twin brothers Smoke and Stack come back from Chicago and try to open up a juke joint in the area where they grew up, and they enlist the help of their cousin, Pastor Boy, because his dad is a preacher. And Preacher Boy, sorry.
Pastor.
Got that backwards. But you know what I meant. And Pastor Boy. It's like a don't worry about it. And so they try to open up a juke joint to use what they know to try to like establish this place. And that's the first half of the movie, really, is just them trying to establish this and reconnecting with the people they grew up with, really. And it's just a lot of fun, even before the vampire starts happening.
Right.
The movie was made on a budget of $90 million, and this was decided after a bidding war between multiple companies trying to get this script from Ryan Coogler and get this movie made. Warner Brothers won out, offering him the $90 million, as I said, to make the movie. and it has opened with a 48 million from U.S. and Canada and 63.5 million worldwide. So it's well on its way to being quite a success.
Yeah. So the box office for it is 100% a big deal. I think that this could end up being one of those rare cases where a movie makes more in its second week
Oh, I think it could be too.
than it did during its first week.
As you said, like the word of mouth spreading, like it's spreading on threads and social media and such.
Right. Everybody's talking about it that I can see, and this doesn't happen often. So I looked it up. Only 4% of movies experience this. So it is a long shot that it makes more next weekend than it did this weekend.
But it'd be
But I
fun.
think it's completely possible. So 4% of movies that happens to,
That's
Titanic
crazy.
being one of them.
That checks out. Yeah.
That was one where the word of mouth kept getting around, and similar thing where everybody ended up going to see it multiple times, and people were talking about how much they were going to see it.
So,
Now, the one thing that could be holding this back is Titanic is much more digestible than this movie
right.
in the way that it's not horror, I guess would be the way to put it. Like even my mom, I had
So,
told her how she should go see it, and she is into horror, but she said she watched the trailer and she's like, I think that might look too dark for me. I was like, Mom, it's not dark at all.
it's not that dark.
Not like,
There's comedy in it. It's not a lighthearted movie, but it's not like
right,
it's
and
not like
like
the Evil Dead remake. It's like not like that dark.
right, and it's not full of gore or anything like that.
No.
So I think it is a more accessible than normal audiences might think.
Yeah, the normies might like it.
Right. So I do expect that it's going to make its money back, and I think it's going to have some pretty great staying power as long as Warner Brothers doesn't,
Yeah,
somehow find a way to screw this up.
they like to do that. Did you see Ben Stiller's comments?
I did see Ben Stiller's comments. You
So the
want to
movie,
talk about that?
yeah, the movie came out and it was announced that initially it was announced that it made 61 million, and there were multiple sites saying, "Oh, it comes out 61 million. It's nowhere near its budget still." And kind of like they were trying to push this narrative that it's going to be a kind of a bust. Ben Stiller came out and said, "Since when is a 61 million dollar opening original movie bad?"
Right.
And I really like the fact that he did that. Like there's been too much of like it's like clickbait is what it
Yeah.
is. They're trying to say like, "Oh, bomb 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 bomb," like it gets clicks. And that's just not what's going on right now. And it's pathetic really. And I'm glad that he came in and said something to defend the movie.
Yeah, and one thing that I saw is that so there was a specific article for Variety that had pointed that out. And it was the way they worded it. And so somebody else was posting screenshots of this same author from Variety when they did articles on Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which had the same budget and
Hmm.
made about the same money in its opening weekend. And the dialogue this same person had for it was completely different.
No, that's bogus then.
Yeah. So, not a good look.
No, it's a bad look. I'm really glad that he did that. Like, there's no reason for him to do that. He's not in the movie. He has nothing to do with the movie that I know of. And it was good to see, I guess.
Yeah, and I saw Pedro Pascal was hyping the movie up and
Was
was
he
like, "You
good?
just need to go see this movie." He took a picture of himself next to the poster at the movie theater.
Fantastic. I can see it making more money the second week. I'm kind of with you on that. I'm kind of hoping for it. I'm
I
gonna
think it's completely
pull
possible.
for it. Yeah.
I think one thing that Warner Brothers needs to do that you and I have talked about is they need to not
Let it
set
breathe.
a release date
Yeah. Let the
for
movie.
digital or physical unless
Yeah.
it's far out.
Yeah. Let the movie breathe. Let people talk about it and let people go see it. Let people go see it multiple times if they want to. Like
Right.
I know Pat went twice in 1 week. That's fine. Other people might go twice in 2 weeks.
You know what else I did? I pre-ordered the 4K Steelbook.
You
It's up for pre-order on
madman.
Amazon right now. It does not have a release date on it, though. I have no idea when I'm getting this. It actually, so technically, it does have a release date. It said, I will get this within the next year.
I mean, that's a pretty solid bet.
It's like, hey, by April, I think it said April 1st, 2026. You'll have this by then at least.
Nice. I mean, it's not CMON making it, so you're pretty safe there, I think.
Right. Yeah, so
Boom.
I mean, I when I got out of it, Thursday night. Friday came, and I was sitting there, and I had Friday off because the holiday, and I was like, you know what? This is one I know I want to have, and it's a good looking steelbook. And if they put the care into the physical release that they put into the theatrical release, then I
Oh, they
think it's
will.
going to be something really special. So I was like,
They
I
will.
know I want this. I'm going to get it.
Yeah. And I kind of figured you really liked the movie too, because when you went and saw it Thursday night, I didn't get to catch it until Friday. And I sent, like, there was a group chat we're in, and someone asked you if you liked the movie. He's like, yeah, it was good. And then, like, you didn't you didn't go into it at all. I'm like, that means either A, he hated it, or B, he really liked it. And I had a feeling you were leaning towards the that really liked it.
Yeah, and after like another day, finally I came in and was like, listen, you got like it got to the point where I was like I was realizing that usually I'm quiet about movies that I
Mhm.
like until we do the episode.
Right.
But for this one I was like I've got to tell everybody how much I like this movie so that if I can convince even a couple people to go see this opening weekend, great.
Mhm.
If that combined with this episode and anything else I posted on social media helps people to go in the next week or two,
Yeah.
even better. I think everybody's got to get out there and see this.
Right. Like, not to spoil our own episode, but I'm gonna say we both. I echo that statement. Like, people should go catch this. And it's like you said, it's not like hardcore, like violent or gory or even like super scary. It's just a good, well done story. But let's get into reviews, and I don't think we're there yet. So
Yeah, so do you want to take a minute and just do your quick and dirty spoiler free review and then I'll do mine?
sure, yep, I can do that. So let's start with the things I loved about this movie. Cinematography, fantastic. Music, great. The sound design, the acting, as I said, Michael B. Jordan's fantastic. But it's not just him. Like, the whole cast really brings it. Like, they even like Delroy Lindo, fantastic. Like, the smaller like bit characters, just really, just everyone just is just adding so much to this cake, and it just keeps getting better, better, and better. And loved the design of the vampires. That's not a spoiler. It was in the trailer. We all know there's vampires involved. And I had this on my list of my most anticipated movies of this year, and I it didn't disappoint. It was as good. It's probably even better than I expected. So that's my cheap, dirty review.
All right. Okay, so for me, I quickly realized while watching this that this is probably going to be one of my favorite movies ever.
Hmm.
It was an entire experience, and I felt so many emotions as this was happening. And now that I've seen it twice, I'm confident in saying that this is what I consider a modern masterpiece. I think that this is going to be right up there with all those movies that I like. Like, I was just thinking as I'm watching this, like, oh my God, like, I haven't felt this way
Right.
about a movie during the theater experience in so long. I think the last time I felt like this was during Endgame.
I was thinking that.
The emotions that I was feeling, and they're completely different emotions,
Hmm.
but the level of emotion. So
Right.
it's like, for me, it's right up there with like Endgame, but I was having similar feelings to like the first time I ever watched Tombstone, or like the first time I ever watched Aliens and Predator and like
Right.
all these movies that mean so much to me. I was having those feelings while watching this, that like this is probably one of the best vampire movie ever made. It's right up there. I do not think I'm going to see another movie this year that tops this movie.
Right.
And
It'll be
I
tough.
think on top of that, it tops every movie that I saw last year.
Yeah. I could say that too. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, we just did that top 2024 list,
Hmm.
and I looked it over again, and I was like, this is better than all of those. I think this is the best movie I've seen in years.
Right. And Holly went with me, and she said the same thing afterwards. She was usually like you go see a movie, she kind of is reserved about it until like later on in the night, and then she'll be like, yeah, I like this, I like this, like that. Like, immediately, like, walking out of the theater, she's like, that was so good.
Yeah.
And that just, I mean, it just shows, like, and like, she's not really into horror like you and I are. She's watched a lot more lately because she's hanging out with me, and she has to. But that's
Yeah. We've talked about recently how we see those movies, and like the movie Tombstone kept coming to my mind while watching this, where we see these movies that we say afterwards, like, hey, years and years later, you're like, everybody was firing on all cylinders when
Hmm.
this came out.
Yeah.
This was the peak of this person's career, or this was the peak of this person's career. That this is one of those movies
Yeah.
where everything Ryan Coogler has done has been great so far, but it's not been on this level.
Right. And that's
Michael B. Jordan, same thing. He's always bringing it. But right here, he brings just so much more.
yeah. And I completely agree with that. I am a big fan of the Creed movies. I'm a big fan of the Black Panther, first Black Panther movie. The second one's good too. Don't get me wrong. But yeah, this is his opus so far. We'll go with, and it's not knocking those other movies. It's just the accumulation of like all his talents to this point. Just show off here, like everything and you can tell it was a passion project. He's a horror fan, and he really just brought it, and it's great.
Yeah. And so everybody that was involved in it is firing on all cylinders. Delroy Lindo
Hmm.
gave one of the best performances I've seen in a while, but I think it's definitely if he has ever had a chance to get an Oscar, it'll be for this.
That'd be awesome. Be
That
well
would be
deserved too.
awesome.
It'd be well deserved.
Yeah, everybody was saying how they thought he should have gotten one for The Five Bloods
Hmm.
or a few other movies that he has done. And so this would be such a great time for him to get one for this. I think he would earn it
No,
if he does.
yeah. He's just so charismatic and just such a good character. And like it's not to just keep repeating things, but like everyone, like even like Omar Benson Miller, who plays Cornbread. Like he doesn't really have a big role, but I loved every second he was on screen. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
What's her name? Wunmi Mosaku, who play I don't know if I pronounced that right. She plays Annie.
Yeah.
She's also in the Loki TV series, and she was in Deadpool and Wolverine as Hunter B-15 in the Marvel Universe. She's in it, and she is fantastic too. Like not to, I just wanted to bring her up and mention her because I thought she was really good, and just I want to see her in more stuff. And it was great to see her in a role like this.
Yeah. Yeah. She's phenomenal. And I think one of the biggest things about it is how we're going to go do a deep dive later in the episode. I have a whole segment on the music,
Hmm.
but the music in this is unbelievably good.
Hmm. It is.
So, yeah, I think that's for my spoiler-free review. I think that's all I'll lead with right now.
Right.
You got anything else?
No, I don't. I could gush about the cast more, but I feel like that's probably better off of the spoiler section.
Yeah, yep. I have a section here for each character, and we can do a deep dive on each one of them and really dig into the character and the actor. Okay, so let's jump into the spoilers.
Yes.
So the first thing I want to talk about is the genre of the movie. And so what I wanted to say here is that in a interview, Ryan Coogler basically said that he considers this movie to be genre fluid in that it has elements of many different genres in it. And he wants to leave it up to the audience to decide which one of those it really is.
Right.
So it obviously has many elements of horror. It is a vampire movie
Mhm.
through and through, but it's also an action movie.
Right.
There's many scenes of just straight action. It's also very much a drama movie and a period piece, but it also has musical elements to it. So, and that's one of the things that Coogler pointed out is that if somebody wanted to argue that this movie is a musical, he would let them. You know, like if somebody feels that way, so be it. And I think that from that perspective, I would not be surprised if somebody turns this into a musical somewhere down the road too.
Oh, that's very possible.
I would also consider it almost like a fictional music biopic.
Right. For the guy
Sammie.
that Sammie. Yep. Thank you.
Yeah. And it also has a lot of elements of Southern Gothic as well as American Gothic.
Mhm.
And for anybody that doesn't know, American Gothic. So if you know anything about art, there is the art piece of the old woman and the old man with like the pitchfork and that,
Mhm.
and they're standing there. That piece is called American Gothic.
Right.
And that has turned into over time its own genre. Now the genre is it explores the dark side of American history and culture. And so that is a very large piece of this. And the music supports that feeling as
Mm-hmm.
they go through it as well. So they're really, really digging into all these different areas, and every single one of them is done well. And
Right.
it's sort of jumping in between each of them as it goes very fluidly as well.
Right. And like I said, the first half of the movie, like the pre-vampire part, I was having a great time just with the world building, just coming home and just reconnecting with like where they grew up, you know.
Yeah,
And it's
absolutely.
just it's really good. It's really well done.
Yeah. And so let's talk about the director for a second. So
Hmm.
Ryan Coogler, you touched on him a little bit at the beginning here.
Right.
So he has directed a number of movies up until this point. He's directed Fruitvale Station,
Yep.
he's directed Creed, Black Panther, and Black Panther Wakanda Forever.
Okay. I wasn't sure if you
And
directed that one or not.
yep, he directed all of them. And one of the things he did while he was shopping for this movie was he negotiated one of the best deals in Hollywood at the moment. So a deal that is only reserved for like the highest caliber of directors. And Warner Brothers were the only ones that accepted this offer. And there's been article after article talking about how basically people interviewed other executives of other studios, and they're like, no, we didn't do it because we think deals like this are going to break the studio system. Many would argue that the studio system is already broken,
I would say so.
but I digress. So the things we know about this contract is that first off, he has final cut on the film.
Which is awesome.
Yeah, so that means for anybody, any of the uninitiated, that he gets to say when the film is final, and nobody from the studio can tell him to remove anything. They can't decide a scene is going to get changed later. They can't decide they're going to do reshoots. He gives them the movie, and they could make, suggestions.
Suggestions, but he gets final say.
Right, but he can tell them to go kick rocks or whatever he
Mhm.
wants, or he could listen,
Pound salt.
and Ryan Coogler seems like a pretty cool guy, so, I'm sure there were suggestions, and maybe he listened, but maybe he didn't. At the end of the day, this movie, one thing that I haven't pointed out yet is that it was filmed on film.
Hmm.
None of it is digital. It's 100% IMAX film cameras, and it's also the only movie shot this year that is that way.
Do you know who helped him out with that?
I do know.
Good.
Christopher Nolan.
Hmm.
So he knows Christopher Nolan very well, and he said during an interview that he has been talking to Christopher Nolan for years about how, navigating the studio system, navigating his career, navigating life, all those things. But he said once he decided to make this one fully shot on film, he went to Christopher Nolan because he knows that he knows so much about that. And as we've talked about in the past, Christopher Nolan, super, super into filming on film,
Yep.
super into the theatrical experience, all of those things. So he had a special thanks in the credits as well.
And it's just really cool that he would help him out like that. It shows he's a good shows he's got a good what's the word here? Good quality of person to him to help out another director like that.
Yeah, 100%. And I wouldn't be surprised if sometime down the road they're having another conversation about how Ryan Coogler can start his own studio, just like Christopher Nolan has.
Right. And going back to that final cut thing real quick, that is so big because how many times have we like talked about movies and been like, well, this got cut and this got chopped in, and clearly the studio came in and messed around with this and changed this and changed that. To be able to just, and he's still a fairly young director, to have this in place, that's huge.
Yeah. Yep. So that was the first thing. The second thing is that he has first dollar gross. Now, what that means is that he takes a percentage of the theatrical gross. Usually, what happens is that the studio takes its profit and then the director gets a percentage. So, this is huge
That
because
is big.
he's directly taking money from the studio and saying, this is my movie. You are just getting involved. Like, I need you there to make this movie happen as a distributor and all those things. But past that, this is my movie, and I'm making the money off it. So that's massive. The final thing, I didn't ask, did you hear about all these?
I've heard about the Christopher Nolan thing, obviously, the final cut. The first dollar thing, I did not hear about. That was news to me.
Yeah, so the final thing, and this is probably the biggest of all, I think, is that 25 years after the release of the movie, he retains full ownership rights to the movie.
That I did know. Yes,
Yeah, so that's huge
that is.
because that doesn't happen a lot. And he can decide whether he wants to do anything else with this property. He can decide whether he wants to re-release new versions of it, whether like he can do whatever he wants with it at that point. But he gets full ownership to of it, and all the money that comes with that.
Good for him. That's a hell of a deal.
It is a hell of a deal, and I have to imagine that the reason Warner Brothers went for this is because they read this script and they were like, "This is something special,"
Yeah.
and he hasn't missed yet. And yes, it's a gamble, but for what it's worth, Warner Brothers gambles a lot.
Usually they're bad at it.
Yeah, usually they lose, but they do gamble a lot. For what it's worth, with this movie taking number one, number two at the box office this weekend was Minecraft, which is also Warner Brothers. So
It's
great
true.
weekend for them.
It's true. Maybe they'll uncancel some of those movies. Maybe we'll finally see that Batgirl movie see the light of day.
Maybe.
No, it's not going to happen.
Okay, so let's talk about the characters now.
Yeah.
And we can go basically actor by actor, talk about the actor, talk about their character, and really dig into each one of these things.
All right.
So the first one I wanted to talk about here, big dog of the movie, Michael B. Jordan as Smoke and Stack.
And the thing about that is that he's playing twins. And I think either you said this in the group chat or I heard it from you somewhere else, is that usually when someone plays twins in a movie, they're so completely black and white different, like evil, good. This one's a crazy person. This one's the straight guy,
Yeah.
This one, they're both nuanced. They're different characters. Like you can tell which one's which on screen just by the way Michael B. Jordan presents it. That is crazy to me.
Yeah.
And they're both morally gray characters, and he does a great job of being each of them, being having them be their own character instead of just slight variations.
Yeah. And I think that's such a huge benefit for this movie because you completely disappear in it so
Yeah,
quickly,
yeah,
where you are just watching it for them and the scene and whatever's going on, and you're not focused on trying to pick it apart
yeah,
from a like, oh, which one is this? Oh,
yeah.
how did they do this? Oh, you can see that he's not there doing this or whatever. You're not trying to pick it apart.
Right.
You are just ingrained in it because you understand who the character is most of the time. I will say that I very very clearly knew which one was which on the second watch through.
Mm-hmm.
More than I did on the first one.
Oh,
I think
sure.
I had a couple scenes mixed up with them the first time around, but upon second rewatch, and it helped me so much to really like understand more about who the characters are.
The movie starts off, and the first scene we see with them is like them leaning up against a car, and they're passing a cigarette back and forth. And it's just kind of a cool like way to like introduce them and be like, they're twins, but you know, they're different.
Yeah, and the impressiveness of those scenes where they're doing that is that I was watching it and I was just like, how the hell did they do this?
Mm-hmm.
And I
Such a
could
simple thing.
Yeah, because you're trying to watch how they did it. And I watched an interview where he's talking about it, and he was like, whenever we did those scenes with both of them in the scene together, we literally, he's like, because you can't move the camera.
Mm-hmm.
Once you have it in that place, you have to keep it there, and you have to keep you have to keep it all framed because you will have a hell of a time doing that afterwards, especially with film.
Right.
And so they would shoot the scene with him as one of them, and then he'd run out back, he would change quick, and he'd come back in, and they'd shoot the scene again with the other one. And I have to imagine they probably did so many shots of him passing the cigarette over to him because that was just so impressive. And I have to imagine that the only way I can possibly think that they did that is that like he froze the camera where it's like right here, and then like he wrote marker, like a dry erase marker on the
This is
monitor,
where this is. Yeah.
and just had him like stand there and do this over and over again, right? Like that's the
Yeah,
only
you had
way
to
I
have
can
it. Yeah.
possibly think they could have done that.
Yeah. I agree. That's what I was thinking too. But it's just such a like we don't need to see that, but it's awesome that they put it in there, and then it just kind of like sets the tone, you know.
Yeah. And so one of the things that stood out to me about them too is so with them, the reason, like I don't know if you caught on to this, but at the end of the movie when Smoke is sitting there and
Oh yeah.
everything has gone down and he's sitting there trying to roll his own cigarette. So because he fought in the war, he's got like the shakes that
Oh, you
happen
stole it.
whenever these stressful situations come about.
Yeah.
And so Stack would always roll his cigarettes for him. So that's why he gives him a cigarette right there. That's
Yeah.
why when another stressful cigarette or situation happens, he like when they were talking through all the finances and everything,
Mhm.
and finally Smoke is like, all right, just give me a cigarette.
Yeah.
So that's why he had to ask Stack for it there, and that's why at the end he's trying to roll his own one, and
Yeah,
then
he's
when he
trembling.
kills the Ku Klux Klan guy, that's
He
why
takes
he
it.
asks him for his
Spoilers.
cigarettes because we're in the spoiler section
No,
now.
no, I'm joking. I'm joking.
So that's why he asked him for the cigarettes there because he can't roll them himself and he wants one because he knows he's on his way out.
My dude, you stole my thunder. I thought I had one on you there. I was all excited to present that. Yeah, I noticed that too. And then I noticed that like he couldn't roll it, and then Smoke. I'm sorry, Stack was the one that always rolled the cigarettes, and that was such a cool little, just another like just a little thing that's in there that the director put in there, and it's so appreciated, like things like that.
All those things that aren't they're not explicitly spelled out.
Yeah.
They're there for you to unravel.
Hmm.
You know
Yeah, he's not holding your hand, but he's giving you clues to make the connection. Yeah, that was.
exactly.
Yeah, I had that written down. I was going to bring that up, and you nailed it, kid.
So another thing that really stood out to me about Smoke and Stack is how interesting they design their relationships.
Right.
You know, so you got Smoke and Annie, and you've got Stack and Mary. And I was noticing online a lot of people are identifying with not just one. You know, like you. So that kind of ties into that whole idea that they've designed these characters so that anybody can identify with certain characteristics of them. You know,
Right.
they're both complex. They both got their own sort of sets of complicated relationships and morals and all those things that different people identify with. And so a lot of people are identifying with Stack and Mary, but I also saw a lot of people identifying with Smoke and Annie. Now,
I
for
saw.
me, I think that Smoke and Annie's relationship in this is probably the linchpin of this movie, right?
Right. Yeah, I completely agree. I was going to say that. I identified more with the Smoke and Annie. I want to see more of the Smoke and Annie story and less, not less of the Stack and Mary, but I cared more about them.
Well, I think so. If they ever decide to do a sequel to this, the focus would be Stack and Mary, right?
Yeah, it has to be.
And so, they could tie in some of those old things with Smoke and Annie and whatnot. And, maybe they have flashbacks or whatever. But I think the main focus of this one was Smoke and Annie. And if they ever do anything else, it would probably be Stack and Mary. And really dig into what that relationship is over the course of the next 60 years,
Right. Because we only got a little bit of snippets of them right at the train station scene was kind of a big, not like an info dump, but it was really a lot of information there about their past.
Yeah, and when you meet Smoke and Annie in her little shack there,
Hmm.
that scene and the way the music plays throughout it
Hmm.
is one of the best scenes I think in all of cinema.
Yeah.
The
It's
way
so
all
good.
of that plays out, the emotion of it, like all of it, and the way the music really, really highlights all of it from the moment he gets there and he's looking at the grave to the
Hmm.
moment, they're in each other's embrace at the end. The music guides that entire scene,
And
It's very good.
the performances are great in it. And there's also the first mention of the money in that scene too. I don't know if you caught that. The plantation dollars, which was a thing I didn't really think about, but it
Yeah.
makes sense that would be something that happened back then.
Yeah, that is a big thing that I noticed with Smoke throughout the entire movie is, his focus on money. And he talks about it in
Mhm.
that scene where
Yeah.
he's like, I've never seen demons and monsters, but I've seen money and power.
Hmm.
And that's kind of what he's interested in.
Right. And there's another scene later on at the bar where someone tries to pay with a different form of that kind of currency, and he tries to shut it down because he doesn't respect it. He wants real power, real money.
Right. Yeah. Very good writing there.
Hmm.
I had seen another interview with Ryan Coogler talking about why he chose twins for this. And he said one of the main reasons was that he really wanted to challenge Michael B. Jordan. You know, give that challenge to him and see what he can do with it. Michael B. Jordan has been in every one of his movies so far. So the idea that, I think he was always going to be in this, but
Yeah.
he wanted to really give him something to dig into. The other part of it is that he had identical twin aunts. And so he pointed out that they were identical, so they look exactly the same, but everybody could always tell which one was which by their
Hmm.
demeanor.
Right.
And so he really wanted to dig into that idea. And then another big part of it is that this whole movie plays with these ideas of lore and spirits and monsters,
Right.
gods, all these ideas that are thrown out there, and some are dug into more than the others. But in West African culture, there's twin deities, like that's a whole thing, and so he liked that idea and involving that in this. And then he talked about how when he grew up, there was always like a set of twins in every neighborhood, and he always thought that was interesting. And so these two are like they're like a symbol in this area. Everybody knows them.
Smokestack twins.
Yeah, exactly. So I thought that was all really good, and I think
Yeah.
that, like I said, this is the best performance Michael B. Jordan has put on thus far, and I think they'd be remiss not to push for him for an Oscar for this.
Right, and obviously the Oscars are so very far away, but get the campaign going now. Like I know we touched on before in episodes a little bit about how Oscars are not they're more about the campaign. The studio's got to push for it. So I think if this movie does well, which it's on its track, and hopefully it keeps going,
Yep.
they need to push for it.
Yeah. So, next person, Miles Catton. So he is the actor who plays Sammie Moore.
Right,
And so this is his first acting credit. I don't
which
know
is
if
crazy.
you knew that, but he's
I
never
did.
acted in anything before.
Yeah, that's insane because he's the heart of the movie, really.
He really is. And what's interesting too is I saw an interview where he was asked what he wants to do with his career, and he said he wants to be in Marvel.
Hmm.
And they were like, "Who would you like to play?" And he's like, "Well, my name is Miles."
I saw that. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, so I would bet that somebody over at Marvel Studios has taken note of that interview already.
Yeah, because we're gonna get Miles Morales, and for those of you who don't know, Miles Morales is the ultimate Spider-Man. Now he's his own Spider-Man, and there's no chance that they're not gonna bring him into the MCU at some point. He's too popular of a character, too much of a well-known design, I guess, the black and red suit and everything. And yeah, that would make total sense for them to give this young an up and coming actor that kind of exposure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing to me that this was his first role. I thought for sure he was just some young actor I hadn't seen before, but nope, there's a reason why I hadn't seen him.
Yeah. So I think that his character, Sammie, this is really his story,
Yeah,
right?
completely, 100%.
Which you don't quite realize from the trailers. The trailers really, really do hide a lot of this story. They hide so much of it.
Right.
But yeah, I think this is truly from beginning to end, it's his story. He's
Right.
the first person on the screen, and he's
Mhm.
also the last person on the screen.
Yes, he is. And it's just one of those stories like your cousins come home, you're trying to impress them. Like I think we've all been there. We had family. Like you always want to be cool in the eyes of your big cousins,
Right.
and that's part of it. That's a driving force of like why he goes with him, why he's trying to impress him with his guitar playing, and yeah, it's he is without question probably it's Michael B. Jordan's movie. Like he's the star, but Sammie is the heart. He is fantastic, and I can't wait to see what he does moving forward.
Yeah. What's really interesting about Sammie's character too is it has a ton of parallels to Robert Johnson
Hmm.
and the deal at the Crossroads.
Hmm.
So, for anybody that doesn't know, Robert Johnson was a blues player in I think he started in the 1930s.
I think so. Yeah.
And the way the legend goes is that everybody knew him, and either they didn't know he played guitar, or he wasn't
He
good,
wasn't that good. Yeah.
is the way everybody tells it. And then he disappears for 18 months, goes out on the road, nobody knows where he went, and then returns, and he's one of the best guitar players to ever live at
Hmm.
that point. Now, what's also interesting about this is he passed away at the age of 27.
Yep.
And so that is, for anybody that's into music, the 27 Club is a whole thing, and he's basically the original member of it. But there's
Right.
a ton of huge musical artists who've passed away at 27. And
Right.
so a lot of
It's
people
just
think
weird.
this whole idea that they sold their soul and it was to have all of this really concentrated success, right?
Right.
You
Yeah.
are massively huge for 10 years or whatever, and
Mhm.
then you die in an untimely death.
And the story of him selling his soul at the crossroads to the devil has been in everything. I think it was in Oh Brother We're Out There. They kind of like touch on it a little bit, like the idea of it. It's
Yep.
referenced. There's referenced by Eric Clapton in the song Crossroads. It's everywhere. Like it's a well known story in pop culture. Even if you don't know the specifics of it, you've heard the idea of someone selling their soul for rock and roll, right? And that's kind of where the story comes from. It's from his story.
Yeah, he's the original story. And so in this, Sammie is really experiencing his own version of that story.
Right.
And what I think is interesting about it is Ryan Coogler decides to go in a different direction with it, where he's not selling his soul. He's
Nope.
actually it is his talent,
Hmm.
and he's choosing not. He's fighting for his soul in order to continue on fostering his own talent,
Right.
and all the people around him are fighting for him as well, because I mean that's the whole thing is with the vampire here, he wants specifically Sammie. He
Hmm.
wants him.
And yeah, he's trying to, because his dad obviously is a preacher. I almost said pastor again. His dad is obviously huge religious influence in his life, and he wants him, and even like his cousins, the Smokestack brothers, want him to at a certain point, especially Smoke, want him to go back to that life, continue that life. Like don't pursue, a life on the road, being a musician and such. And like it's his decision that he wants to do. So that's another little conflict that rises up every now and then, especially with Smoke. There's a whole scene where him and Sammie get into it about Sammie wants to do this for his life now, and Smoke's like, "No, go back to what you know."
Yeah, and that's one of the last conversations that they have together
Mhm.
before all hell breaks loose.
Oh hell.
Yeah, but it's all really cool,
Mhm.
and I think that for Sammie, he's probably just sick of everybody around him trying to tell him what they think he should be doing.
Right.
He's
And
sick
that's
of
yeah.
Smoke telling him he should. Oh no, you don't want to go out on the road. I've never met a happy musician. Go
Hmm.
over to this plantation and just live a happy life. And
Right.
his father wants him to, just do the church thing with him, and
Hmm.
so everybody wants him to do something different. He just wants to get out on the road with his guitar.
Yeah. Exactly.
That's what he does. All right, so next up on my list, you already brought her up, Wunmi Mosaku.
Thank you.
So she has over 60 acting credits. Most notably for me, she was a huge force in the HBO show Lovecraft Country. Have you
Oh
seen
really?
that, Dan?
I have not seen that.
Very good. Very, very good show. She was also in His House. You and I watched
Hmm.
that. She's phenomenal in that. She's the wife.
Holy crap! Yeah, she is, isn't she?
Yeah.
Wow. Did not make that connection, but now I see it, and I feel dumb.
And then she's in Loki and Deadpool and Wolverine, just
Hmm.
like you had said. She's also in Black Mirror, We Own This City, Luther. I'm a big fan of Luther. Fantastic Beasts. And she was actually in Batman versus Superman.
What was she in that?
You should just Google her after this, but her main scene was like in the court case scene, I believe it was.
Oh, okay. I think I remember now.
Yeah, I didn't quite have track of her the last time I watched that. I don't think I'm gonna rewatch it,
I don't see a
just for
reason
that
to.
either. But like if you Google her and that movie, the screenshot will come up, and you'll be like, oh yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So
Kind of
yeah,
like that whole movie is just kind of, oh yeah.
yeah. So she plays Annie. She, honestly, I think she puts forth one of the best performances in this. Her accent
Mm-hmm.
is so good, and it's even more impressive when you know that she's British.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah,
I think British people being like their accent ability will never cease to amaze me. But
because
her,
we just all sound like this, really.
yeah, pretty much. And whenever you hear an American person try and do a British accent, it always comes off very terrible and insulting.
Oi, chip chip sharoo. That's not gonna work.
Yeah, so Annie, her character is she plays a big emotional role in this. You know, all the scenes that you think you want to cry during are
It's her.
probably because of her.
And yeah, she, like I call it Sammie the Heart. I think she's the soul of the movie. And when things start popping off too, she's the stabilizing force. And she's the one being like, "This is what's going on. We need to get together and work together to stop this." Because she's a what's the word for it? Like a medicine woman, a voodoo priestess. I don't really know how to say what she is, but
Yeah,
she
I'm not sure. You know, I don't want to just haphazardly try and put something out there, but she's spiritually connected.
thank
I
you.
think
That's a
would
good
be the
word for it.
best way to
Yeah.
put it. You know, she's aware of all of the different monsters that are in the area. She's aware of the cultural lore.
Hmm.
She's aware of all these different things and any spells that she can cast. She immediately catches on that these are vampires. She's
Right.
aware of the vampires. We don't know how she's aware, but she just seems to be more connected into the world of the unknowable than anybody else.
Right. Initially, when things started popping off, she calls him Haints at first, which I thought was really cool because I had not heard that word used in a movie before. And like a haint is just kind of a restless kind of evil spirit. And I was like, "Holy crap!" I only had heard of that word somewhat recently, and it was nice. It was cool to like have her say that at first, and then she's like, "They're not Haints, they're vampires."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where did you hear about it first?
Haints, if you wanted the honest answer, there's a board game called Vagrant Song, and all the bad characters in it are Haints. So that's where I first heard that term, and then kind of it's been in my head since then.
Hey, nothing wrong with that, you know.
Yeah,
A lot of people learn stuff from board games or comic
yeah,
books or regular
exactly.
books or movies, you know.
I've done all those things.
One of the other things that I thought was really interesting about her character too is that, you know, she comes into the movie and you immediately have this connection with her. You know, you can see the pain and the lived experiences she's had. She's
Mhm.
representing all of these things with every single thing she says, with every motion she takes, with, you know, she can say three words and you can just see, feel and hear the history and the pain behind them,
Oh,
you know.
yeah,
And so I think she really, between her and the writing, and Ryan Coogler's the sole writer on this.
yeah,
And so those two must have been working hand in hand to mold these characters, to mold her character, because it's so rich. And from that first moment you meet her, right up until when she gets killed, it's almost heartbreaking to watch the entire time. But
right.
then when you finally see her come back as a spirit at the end and she has her baby,
Hmm.
you know, it kind of makes you feel like, you know what, this is probably where she's meant to be. You know, her pain is over and
It's probably
she's
not what
dressed
she
in
wanted, but
white
yeah,
and she's with, and that's the thing she says too, is like, you know, I've got somebody waiting for me over
right.
there anyways.
Yeah. It's not what she wanted, but she was ready. She was ready
Yeah.
for it, I guess is the way to put it. And like going back to when she does meet her end in the movie. There's this. It got me a little bit when she goes like she realizes the vampire who bit her, and she just goes. not you. And it's just like,
Yeah.
oh, right in the heart. Just really.
Yeah. And so yeah, it's Stack that kills her.
Hmm.
And then when you see that Smoke is about to stake her so that she doesn't turn, you can see the terror in Annie's eyes, because in her and Stack's eyes, they were going to
Mary.
bite both of them, and then they were all going to be vampires and everything was going to be
Yeah,
okay.
happy
And they
little
were,
family. Yep.
yeah, they were like, this is just going to be the next step, I guess. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah,
And
and
so
that is true.
when he kills her, that's the moment where they know that he's probably not going to do this, that
Yeah.
this isn't going to end with him becoming a vampire, right?
And yeah, there's something to that, absolutely, because as you said, that was something that Mary and Stack's vampire versions of them kept saying, is that they just everyone together, let's go, let's do this from now on. Like this is our new life, and they were trying to get it to, obviously, Annie and Smoke were their big targets there, and when Smoke ends up killing her before she turns, it does. Mary and Stack have a very visceral reaction to it. They aren't very happy about it.
Yeah.
I
One
think
of the
Mary
things
runs
that's,
away at that point.
yeah, she does run away, and Stack goes with her until he comes back to fight. That's the last you see of Mary, is
Yeah.
she runs away after that, and then Stack comes back and fights with his brother. One of the things that was also, it stood out to me when I saw it in IMAX, because I just saw it the first time in like a regular movie theater, but the sound design when she's doing all like her little spells and everything right there was so good. I was just completely blown away. I was like, oh my God, I didn't hear any of this the first time around. And so that was really interesting to me. And I don't know if, I know they hyped the IMAX experience up as how you're supposed to hear and see everything much better. And at least from the sound design perspective, you did. And that was really cool.
I should have gone and seen it in IMAX.
It was
Oh well.
really good.